Hello everyone. Today the topic for discussion is Microsoft's semantic kernel. In old times, if someone would have asked you, "Are you an AI developer?" and if you answered it yes, right? So the person would have thought you are someone who produces those large models, large ML models with lot of math involved. But now with the evolution of AI, if the same question is answered yes, then you will mostly be consuming those large language models. Before we deep dive into semantic kernel, let's first start with the term copilot. So, to check what does copilot mean, I went and asked all our guru Bing chat who is a what is copilot, right? So it responded back saying that it is a term that can refer to different applications of artificial intelligence that assist users in various tasks. For example, Microsoft launched GitHub Copilot, which is an AI pair programmer that uses OpenAI Codex model to suggest code. The second one was Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is an AI assistant that works alongside Microsoft 365 apps to help increase productivity and creativity and upskills the levels. Now, recently they are talking about Windows Copilot, which is an AI-powered features for Windows 11 that simplifies your interactions with operating system itself, right? So, with this all advancement in this Copilot scenario, as a developer, you would think that how could I use these technologies like LLMs, and how can I make my product have a Copilot, right? So, for that also, Microsoft has actually released a Copilot stack. So what is there in this Copilot stack, right? The bottommost layer is the AI infrastructure, right? And then after that comes the foundational models, where we can either use the hosted foundational models, which are like GPT-4, BART, like that. And then either we can use the hosted fine-tune foundational models, where we will fine-tune the model with some certain details, or the like going out of the way and bringing your own models is also something which is supported. After that comes the orchestration layer, which makes this whole which is a topic that we'll discuss in detail, because that is what a semantic kernel is. And then finally on top comes the copilot front end, which where you can determine the plugin extensibility and give a ux. In all these advancements which is happening in UI, right, the AI safety is one of the critical pieces to better understand what are the ethical implications and consideration we should have when we are using any of the artificial intelligence models. With that, let me take you, what does a semantic kernel mean? So, a semantic kernel is a lightweight software development kit allowing developers to integrate AI technology into their applications. Simple terms, there's a lot of foundational models which are there. How can I go and integrate with those foundational models and have certain data set passed into them, is where the semantic kernel comes in, right? But is it like the semantic kernel is the only thing that I can try? No. So there are a lot of other AI orchestration models like LangChain, Haystack, right, which actually gives the same kind of functionality. The one of the benefit that you will get with the semantic kernel is that it gives that high extensibility in place. If let's say if you are using something for state or side effects, any plugins that you are using, you can actually make anything extensible. Like none of them are actually having a hard dependency on any of the semantic kernel logic. With that sorted out, let's understand what is there in what are the different concepts in there in semantic kernel. There are several new concepts in this product, the primary ones being skills, memories and connectors. So in the documentation, a skill is defined as a domain of expertise made available to the kernel as a single function or as a group of function related to the skill. Memory is more like providing further context, right? And connectors is basically where it allows you to connect to external data and take actions. From a simple flow perspective, if a user makes a request, it goes to kernel process like passes it to the planner gathers these information from skill, memory and connectors, create those steps, and finally it goes through a pipeline, and then the user get back the results. To start utilizing Microsoft Semantic Kernel, you can actually go to this repo. I'll put this as part of the video description as well. Once you open that, and if you scroll down, in the README file, they have documented how to get started with Semantic Kernel. Currently, it supports C Sharp and Python as the core language. And let's say if I want to get started with Python, right? I'll click on this link. So when I click on that link, I'll get this documentation where they provided all the steps required to get started with Semantic Kernel. For this, I've actually created a Python notebook in which I've given all the commands which are there. So first is basically to install this particular semantic kernel, right? So the command that is there to install that is pip install semantic kernel and the version corresponding to that, right? As I've already installed this, it took very less time to get installed, but in the initial run, it might take some time, like within some seconds, a few more seconds to install this particular thing. After that, I'll go and import the semantic kernel. Then I have to provide certain details corresponding to this. Here the endpoint and API key are also something that you need to provide along with deployment, but I have actually like redacted it as part of this particular demo. Okay, so here, because we are using an Azure OpenAI service, I'm able to give this endpoint and API key. But in case if you are having something else, you might go and check this documentation out. How not Azure OpenAI service, but the normal OpenAI service, how to do this, right? After this, the core concept of skill comes in handy, right? So whenever you want to create an application to have a certain skill, you need to go and define this skill as part of a folder structure. So here first I will determine that what is my skill directory, and I'm going to import from the skill directory, I am importing the code folder, right? And in this code, you will see that I have created one NL to SQL and an extract function. So for the demo today, we'll go to NL to SQL only. In this, two files needs to be there config.json and skprompt.txt. Config.json is where you will define the different parameters related to the service itself, along with the input parameters that you want to have for your prompt. In the escape prompt, you will write in natural language that what do you want to get out of this skill. So currently I'm trying to create a NL to SQL skill, which is basically natural language to a SQL query skill. So what I've given it is as write a SQL query for the provided input. If you are asked any relevant irrelevant query, then return I cannot derive this information. I've given it as a data set where I've defined these two different tables, the classroom table and the course table, and what are the different columns that it needs to have. And finally, the input parameter that needs to be passed to the skill, that is what something we have defined here. So for any input that you want to pass to the skill, you need to pass in this format: double curly brace and then a dollar and the input variable name, right? So once I did that and I run this, now I'm going to call this function and say that what are all the courses related to computer science. So here, if you see, it has given me a query: select title from course, the table name, right? Where the department name is actually computer science. So in the backend, it has went and derived this information that computer science should be actually mapped to department name column, and in which table it needs to go and look at, and finally what all data it needs to show, right? So that's how the whole SQL query is created. But let's say if I asked it this question, that what are all the students related to computer science, right? It says, it gives back the result, I cannot derive this information. Why does it give back this detail? Is because the data set that we have defined for it does not contain a student table, and hence it cannot derive this information. And when we are having this query, we have written down that in case if you are asked any irrelevant query that you cannot derive, then return back that I cannot derive this information.
So that's it from the demo side. You can go ahead and explore this particular technology. It's very new, and there are a lot of other like apps which has already been created. So you can go back and look at the different apps which are there and explore on that.